Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome back to Nudes Gaming. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video to start off this 2021 right. So, as you all know, or those of you who do know, welcome to Update Highlights 3.20, and those of you who don't know, also welcome to Update Highlights 3.20. We've got a new patch coming out, guys. Very exciting. Some new change of life updates, as well as some new champions. 14 champions in total, 3 legendaries, 11 epics. We've got 8 factions. We got orcs, barbarians, ogren tribes, undead hordes, sacred order, banner lords, lizardmen, and dwarves. So, in another video, we're going to go in depth about the champions, but for right now, we're just going to do a quick overview, and then in another video, we'll go through their abilities, their passives, what their uses might be, and how you might incorporate them into your dungeon teams or any other content you want to play, especially Doom Tower and Arena. So, that being said, we're going to start off with the introduction here from Valkyrie, and here it is. Hey everyone, a new raid update is coming in hot, and we're here to give you an early insight with update highlights. You can expect awesome new champions, a permanent extension of the daily login rewards, and some quality of life improvements. Want to know more? Read on. Alright, so that's from Valkyrie, one of the community managers. And like I said, quick overview of the champions. So first is King Garog. Legendary champion, faction of orcs. He's an attack type with force affinity. He's got a passive and 3 primary attacks, all based around decreasing defense, increasing speed and crit damage, and also improving some utility on his A1. Next champion, we've got Roxum, an attack champion for the Lizardmen in Magic Affinity, also legendary. This champion specializes in Veil and Perfect Veil self-buffing, which increases not only his damage, but also changes his kit from a single target to an AoE. Alright, sorry about that quick pause, guys. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but back to Roxum. As I was saying, he specializes in Veil and Perfect Veil, self-buffing, which not only improves his damage, but also changes his kit either from an AoE to an attack to a single attack, or vice versa. Next champion is a legendary as well, second orc legendary, very much needed in the orc champion pool, although I do wish they did provide at least a better epic for the orcs rather than another legendary that's going to be very difficult to acquire. However, that being said, he's a great champion, and once he comes out, I hope everyone who needs him is going to be able to pull him. He is a defensive champion in the Spirit Affinity, Iron Braggo, and he actually not only has a passive that increases defense, he also has an aura that increases defense. Unfortunately, it is Doom Tower, but that's all I'm going to say. Like I said, in the next video, we're going to go into more detail about these new champions that are going to be coming out. So we're going to leave it at plenty of utility. Again, increasing defense is the name of his game. And stuns are his bread and butter. So, that's Iron Braggo of the Orc faction. Now we're on to the epics. We've got the one new dwarf, Melga Steelgirdle, an HP type champion of the Spirit Affinity in the faction of dwarves. Has an all battles HP aura. A small one, but it's still there. Primarily a support, although she's an HP type champion, she is primarily for support, with her A2 being her primary attack. Chancellor Yasmin from the faction of Bannerlord, she's a support type champion of the Force Affinity. Unfortunately, not a very good champion, at least by reading the kit, and we'll talk about that more another time. Next champion is Vogoth of the Undead Hordes. Another HP type champion of the Spirit Affinity. Vogoth specializes in provoke debuffs, as well as providing a leech debuff on his passive. Next, we have Armina. Do not sleep on this champion, and I'll tell you why in the next video. He or she, we're going to say she because it's Armina. Magic Affinity, attack type of the Barbarians faction. Super high utility. Do not sleep on this champion. That's all I'm going to say. Wait for the next video. Another. Do not sleep on this champion if you get her. Ursula the Mourner of the Banner Lords. Avoid Affinity. And also a support type. You're going to want to get her if you do not have a good reviver. Anax of the Undead Hordes. Spirit Affinity attack type champion. Specializes in single attacks which provide either a weaken, decreased attack, poison, or decreased defense, as well as a passive that provides an increased defense as well as an increased attack on this champion. Farakin the Fat of the Barbarians. Sounds more like an Ogren than a Barbarian, but I'll take it. Attack type champion, Spirit Affinity. Also has a passive which is deflects 20% of all incoming damage. Meanwhile, his A3 is actually more of a support type ability, which allows him to partner up with his allies to attack a single target. Really, really gnarly looking orc. Like this, if you wanted to know what an orc should look like, and you love high fantasy, this is what I imagine an orc should look like. And being a Lord of the Ring, being a high fantasy fan myself, this guy looks like he's a lot of trouble. And looking at his kit, he very well could be. Next champion, Sanguinia. Pretty dark name for a Sacred Order champion, but, you know, nonetheless, just because she's part of the Sacred Order doesn't mean she doesn't have, you know, some baggage. So, we've got this Bloody Nun over here with an increased ally accuracy in Doom Tower battles. Not my favorite auras, and I'll explain more about that in the next video. Another support champion. However, this support champion actually attacks more than she supports, which is very interesting. So we'll talk about that. Old Hermit Jorg, another orc. Again, honestly, really could have seen him also in Skinwalkers, you know, like a Yeti type kind of creature, or Ogren tribes, honestly, just based on his appearance. But that's not for me to decide. I'm not a developer. I'm just looking at the design and appreciating it. So, epic, but only in A1, A2, and A3. So as a, you know, Magic Affinity support type, he is a reviver. So if you do not have a reviver and you do pull him at some point once he comes out, however, Plarium wants to do that, definitely going to want to check out his kit. And if you want more info about it, we'll look at it specifically in another video. Just type in the comments section which champions you are most interested in, just based on what you've seen in this video, and I'll try to put a more in-depth video out for any particular set of champions you're interested in. And last but not least, we've got, I'm going to go with Yugo. A Magic Affinity type support from the Ogren Tribes faction. We've got a passive that increases speed and a block damage buff, but only on this champion. And interestingly enough, as far as I know, this is the only champion that removes heal reduction debuffs from allies. So that's going to be an interesting utility for certain kinds of playstyles, and we'll get into that another time. Now, that being said, there are the champions. 14 champions, 3 legendaries, 11 epics. Obviously, giving a lot of love to the orcs. And then, you know, a little bit of love to most of the other factions, excluding Night Revenant and some of the other more overpowered factions like Dark Elves, High Elves, and the like. So, daily login rewards expansion. We have all been waiting for it. We've all been hearing about it, and finally, here is some news. Now, granted, it's just a teaser, but nonetheless, we finally have some actual concrete verbiage about what it's going to be. So, these champions, the way they're wording this, it looks like these champions are all going to be for daily login rewards. I don't know if that means you're not going to be able to pull them from shards, but hopefully that's not the case, because if that is the case, shame on you, Plarium, because of the fact that means that all you're doing is creating champions for people to continue playing the game without giving them the chance to improve their accounts in case they decide to either take a break from the game or play other things. So I see you, Plarium. Not cool. However, that doesn't mean this isn't a good update, and it doesn't mean that these champions are not worth playing the game in order to get. So, just because... So, again, this Daily Login Rewards expansion is the last addition to the Daily Login Rewards. However, they do mention that you, even if you finish, doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to get anything. Instead, they say the final tier will reset and repeat after you've claimed the final reward. Now, if you know anything about the current daily login rewards, if you haven't finished them yet, if you get into the final tier, you'll see those are the highest rewards. So, legendary books, void shards, sacred shards, increased energy rewards, all of those kinds of truly useful bonuses and rewards. Those are the kinds of things that we're probably going to see in the final tier. So definitely going to be looking forward to that. And also, something that's interesting that they point out here is that you won't lose access to the previous tiers either. All daily login rewards available until now still remain. The final tier is merely added at the very end. So as they said, like they were saying, much like they've done in the past. So if you aren't up to day 90 and you haven't gone Silver the Drakes, that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to get her. They're not going to get rid of those daily login rewards and add these. These are simply going to be the daily login rewards on top of the ones that they currently have, based on what they're saying here. And last but not least, we've got miscellaneous, which is really not all that miscellaneous, because this is something that that Plarium has also been teasing for quite some time, and you know, especially for the players in the end game, you know, this kind of quote unquote miscellaneous quality of life, these miscellaneous quality of life improvements are something that end game players really look out for. So the first thing is more slots for your champion collection and artifact storage. So the champion collection goes up from 200 to 300 slots, while the artifact storage will go from 700 to 1000. Now, like I said, this is specifically for endgame players. This quality of life improvement won't really affect anyone who's in mid-game or lower, simply because unless you're pay to win, you're not going to be able to do the dungeons enough times in order to rack up this number of useful artifacts. And two, unless you're pay to win, you will simply not be able you will not have enough shards in order to fill out all the champion slots. Now for me, unfortunately, I have almost maxed out my champion pool more times than I'd like to admit. Simply because of tournaments, and specifically champion training tournaments, and fully maxing out champions and stuff like that for future content and just for game progression. So for me, it's a big deal, and for other in-game players, it's going to be a big deal. But if you're free to play and or even if you just spent a little bit here and there and you're in mid game or just starting the game, this is not going to be for you. Not to say that it's a bad addition to the game. This quality of life improvement is really useful. However, it's specific. It's to cater to a certain audience, like Plarium does. So, now, last but not least, we've got clan boss battles will always start in manual mode rather than auto battle. This, I think, is good because the players that have the roster to do unkillable teams and teams that can 1-key Ultra Nightmare or 2-key Ultra Nightmare typically require manual mode to start before they can go into auto mode. So this is actually a quality of life improvement that should have been from the beginning of the game. And yes, I realize it's an auto, like it's meant to be like an AFK sort of game in the sense of being able to just walk away from the game while it plays out the abilities. However, as you progress, it becomes more important to speed tune and become more technically proficient in how the game actually should be played in order to maximize your reward potential. So manual mode should have been done like at the beginning. So finally, thank you, Plarium. I myself do not have an unkillable team, so this is actually super good for me and other players like me who are working on an unkillable team. But beyond that, it's just something that should have been done earlier. But I'm not going to gripe anymore. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is just to point out that 3.2 is on its way. We have information. We have champions. We have storage, artifact, and champion pool slots coming. And hopefully many more rewards. Now, that being said, thank you all for watching. This is Nudes Gaming. You can call me Nudes. Type in the comments what you thought of the video, if there are any champions that you want me to cover more in depth in terms of their abilities and their potential uses in the game. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions for content in the future, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that's all. Have fun, everybody. Keep on playing.